The chain rattled first. Metal against bark, a sound that didn't belong in these woods. Martha Hayes stopped walking. Her breath came out in small clouds. October mornings in Oregon bit cold, the kind of cold that settled in your joints and reminded you of every year you'd lived. 68 of them now. Her knees ached. Her lower back had that familiar stiffness that never quite left anymore. Rusty, her German Shepherd mix, stopped beside her. Ears up, nose working the air. He'd heard it too. Martha stood perfectly still listening. The Douglas firs towered around her, their bark dark with morning dew. Moss hung from branches in long, pale curtains. Somewhere overhead, a crow called out. Then another rattle. Closer this time. Not the sound of an animal, something deliberate, something human. She should have turned around, gone back to the trail, back to the gravel road, back to her trailer. That's what a sensible woman her age would do. But Martha had stopped being sensible 15 years ago, around the same time she'd stopped being a lot of things. She moved toward the sound. Rusty stayed close to her left leg the way he'd been trained. Martha had trained him herself. Old habits. She'd trained field medics once back when she wore a uniform and carried a rifle and believed that saving lives meant something permanent. Before she learned that sometimes you save someone just long enough for them to die in your arms instead of on the ground. The sound came from beyond a stand of old-growth pines down a slope she'd never walked before. Martha had been coming to these woods for 3 years, ever since she'd moved into the trailer at the end of Meadowbrook Lane. Same route every morning. Same 2 miles. Same time. Routine kept the nightmares manageable. Routine kept her from thinking too much about the things she couldn't change. But today she broke routine. She climbed down the slope using exposed roots for handholds. Her boots slipped once on wet leaves. Rusty went ahead sure-footed, looking back to make sure she was keeping up. The trees grew thicker here, less light. The air smelled like earth and rot and something metallic underneath it all. Blood. Martha knew that smell. Knew it the way some people know the smell of their childhood home. It triggered something in her chest, a tightness that started behind her ribs and spread outward until her hands were shaking. She stopped, closed her eyes, counted to 4, breathed in, counted to 4, breathed out. An old technique. Didn't always work. Worked enough. She opened her eyes and kept walking. The clearing appeared suddenly, like the forest had been hiding it on purpose. A massive Douglas fir stood in the center, at least 6 feet around bark scarred and ancient. And at the base of that tree, slumped against the trunk like broken dolls, were 4 men. Chained. Heavy logging chain, the kind used to drag timber, wrapped twice around the tree and looped through their wrists behind their backs. Industrial padlocks held it in place. The men wore leather vests, torn open patches, visible even through the damage. Their faces were swollen, split open in places, dried blood crusted over their beards and necks. One man's hand bent at an angle that made Martha's stomach turn. Another had blood dried over both ears, dark and thick. None of them were moving. Martha stood at the edge of the clearing. Every instinct she'd developed over 3 tours in 2 different wars told her to assess, evaluate, decide. Don't rush in, don't assume, don't let emotion override training. But her hands were shaking again. Worse this time. Because the man closest to her, the biggest one, thick-necked with a shaved head and a tattoo running from his jawline down past his collar, looked exactly like Corporal Danny Brennan. Not exactly. Danny had been 22. This man was older, maybe late 40s. But the shape of his jaw, the way his shoulders slumped forward, the tattoo on his neck, it was all wrong and all right at the same time. Her brain knew it wasn't Danny. Her body didn't care. The man's left eye was swollen shut. His right eye opened. Barely. A sliver of white and pupil looking straight at her. His lips moved. Sound came out rough and strained like gravel scraping glass. Help us. Martha didn't move. Couldn't move. She was back in Kandahar, kneeling in the dirt, hands pressed against Danny's chest, trying to stop the bleeding, knowing she couldn't, watching his eyes go distant and empty, while he tried to say something she'd never be able to hear over the ringing in her ears from the explosion. Ma'am, the man's voice pulled her back. Please. Rusty barked once. Sharp, a warning. Martha blinked, focused, looked at the 4 men again, this time through the lens of training instead of trauma. The big man, the one who looked like Danny, lacerations across his face and scalp, possible concussion. His breathing was steady, controlled. He was conscious aware. That made him the least critical. The man next to him, younger, maybe mid-30s, had his head tilted back against the bark, mouth open, breathing in shallow gasps. His chest rose and fell unevenly. Possible broken ribs. Possibly worse. The third man, older, graying beard, had his eyes closed. His breathing was so shallow Martha almost couldn't see it. His skin had a grayish tint. Shock, maybe. Hypothermia starting to set in. The fourth man was watching her with clear, steady eyes. No visible injuries on his face, but his wrists were raw and bleeding under the chains. He'd been trying to get free. Trying hard. Martha stepped into the clearing. "How long have you been here?" she asked. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Since last night," the big man said. "Maybe 10 hours. 10 hours. Temperature had dropped to near freezing overnight. They'd been exposed, restrained, unable to move or generate heat. The one with gray skin was hypothermic." "No, maybe about it." "Who did this?" Martha asked. "Doesn't matter," the big man said. "They're coming back." That changed everything. Martha looked at the chains, thick industrial, padlocked. She didn't have bolt cutters, didn't have tools. Her trailer was 3 miles away. The nearest house with a landline was Dale Simmons' place, another 2 miles past that. The man with gray skin made a sound, low, barely human. His chest stuttered, stopped, started again. Martha knew that sound. She'd heard it in field hospitals and transport vehicles and bombed-out buildings. It was the sound of a body starting to shut down. "I need to go get help," she said. "I'll be as fast as I can, ma'am," the big man said. His voice was urgent now. "If they come back and find us still here, still alive, they'll finish it. And if they find you here, they'll finish you too." Martha looked at him. Really looked. His right eye was steady focused. No panic, just stating facts. "What's your name?" she asked. "Garrett. Garrett. I was a combat medic for 23 years. I've been in worse situations than this." That wasn't true, but it sounded good. "Then you know how to assess," Garrett said. "And you know Roach over there doesn't have much time." Roach, the one with gray skin, the one who looked like Danny. Martha looked at Roach again. His chest rose, fell, stuttered. She couldn't save Danny, couldn't stop the bleeding, couldn't stabilize him, couldn't do anything but watch him die. But Roach wasn't Danny. Roach was here now, and she had training and time and options Danny never got. "I'll be back," Martha said. She turned and ran. Running at 68 wasn't the same as running at 25. Her knees screamed, her lungs burned, her heart slammed against her ribs hard enough that she wondered if this was it, if she was about to collapse in the middle of the woods and become another body someone else would have to find. But she didn't stop. Rusty ran beside her, matching her pace, glancing up every few seconds like he was checking to make sure she was still moving. She focused on the trail. Roots, rocks, avoid, step, breathe. Don't think about Danny. Don't think about Roach. Don't think about how many times you failed to save someone who needed you. Just run. The trail opened up into the access road. Gravel crunched under her boots. Her trailer was to the left 1/4 mile. Dale's house was to the right 2 miles. She turned right. Dale Simmons had lived in Ridgeline for 52 years. He'd worked as a logger until his back gave out, then worked as a mechanic until arthritis made that impossible, and now he lived alone in a house he'd built with his own hands and minded his own business. He was the only person in town Martha talked to, not because she liked him particularly, because he didn't ask questions. She saw his house through the trees, single-story, white siding, gone gray with age, a workshop out back where he still fixed small engines for people who couldn't afford to go anywhere else. His truck was parked in the driveway. He was home. Martha stumbled up the front steps and pounded on the door. Dale opened it with a shotgun in one hand and a mug of coffee in the other. He looked at Martha, looked at Rusty, looked at the expression on her face, and set the shotgun down. "What happened?" "4 men," Martha said, gasping, "chained to a tree, past the ridge. They're hurt. Bad. One of them won't last another hour." Dale didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate. He went inside, picked up the phone, dialed 911, gave the operator the general location, described the situation, hung up. Then he dialed another number, a long one, someone out of state. The conversation was short, quiet. Martha couldn't hear most of it. She caught fragments. Ridgeline, chained, 4 of them. Yeah, I'm sure. Dale hung up, looked at Martha. What were they wearing? Leather vests, patches. Dale's expression changed. Something shifted behind his eyes, something that looked like recognition and worry mixing together. What kind of patches? I don't know. I didn't stop to read them. Dale went to the workshop, came back with bolt cutters, a first aid kit, wool blankets, and a gallon jug of water. He loaded everything into his truck. Martha climbed into the passenger seat without being asked. Dale didn't tell her to stay. He knew better. They drove as far as the logging road allowed, then hiked the rest. When they reached the clearing, everything was exactly the same. 4 men, 1 tree, chains. Garrett's eye tracked them as they approached. The other 3 didn't move. Dale went to work on the chains. The bolt cutters were old but functional. He positioned the blades around the first padlock, leaned his weight into the handles. The lock resisted. He adjusted his grip, tried again. Metal groaned, snapped. The chain fell away. Garrett's arms came forward slowly, stiff from 10 hours locked in one position. He flexed his hands open and shut, trying to get blood flowing back into his fingers. The skin underneath the chains was raw, torn in places down to the muscle. Dale moved to the next lock, cut it, then the next, then the last. All 4 men were free. Garrett stood up on shaking legs, leaned against the tree he'd just been chained to. Martha went to Roach. His skin was cold. Too cold. His pulse was weak, irregular. His breathing shallow. She wrapped him in one of the wool blankets, tucked it around his chest and shoulders. Opened the water jug, tilted it carefully to his lips. Slow, she said. Don't choke. Roach's eyes flickered open. Unfocused. Confused. He tried to grip the jug, but his hands didn't work. Martha held it for him, the way she'd held canteens for wounded soldiers who couldn't hold them themselves. Water ran down his chin. He swallowed once, twice. His chest expanded a little more on the next breath. That's it, Martha said. Stay with me. Dale pulled out his phone, checked for signal. Nothing. He swore under his breath, looked at Garrett. Sheriff's on the way. So's an ambulance. Should be here in 20, maybe 30 minutes. Garrett nodded, didn't say anything, just stared at the tree line like he was waiting for something. Martha checked the other 2 men. Pike, the younger one with shallow breathing, had 2 cracked ribs at minimum, possibly a punctured lung. She told him to breathe slow. Stay still. Harlan, the older one with the steady eyes, was in the best shape of the 4. Dehydrated, bruised, but functional. What happened? Martha asked him. Harlan looked at Garrett. Garrett gave a small nod. We were riding back from a meeting, Harlan said. Van cut us off on Route 38 just past the turnoff to Cresswell. 6 men got out. Bats, chains, we were outnumbered. They took your bikes, loaded them onto a flatbed. Then they dragged us here, chained us up, worked us over, said they'd be back to finish it. Who were they? Harlan looked at Garrett again. This time Garrett shook his head. Doesn't matter, Garrett said. It matters to the sheriff, Dale said. Then the sheriff can ask. The sound of engines broke through the trees, not motorcycles. Vehicles, heavy ones. 2 sheriff's cruisers came up the logging road as far as they could go, then stopped. Doors open. 3 deputies got out, followed by an ambulance. Paramedics grabbed their kits and jogged into the clearing. Sheriff Bill Pruitt was the last one in. He was 55, gray-haired, with the kind of face that looked permanently tired. He'd been sheriff of Ridgeline for 11 years and had never dealt with anything more serious than meth busts and bar fights. He looked at the 4 men, looked at the chains still lying on the ground, looked at Dale, then at Martha. Mrs. Hayes, he said, you found them. I heard the chains, Martha said, came to investigate. Pruitt pulled out a notebook, started writing. The paramedics worked fast. They loaded Roach onto a stretcher, started an IV, checked his vitals. One of them looked at Martha. You kept him warm. Best I could, probably saved his life. Another hour or 2 and his core temp would have dropped too far to come back. Martha didn't say anything. Just watched them load Roach into the ambulance. Garrett refused treatment, sat on the tailgate of Dale's truck and drank water and said nothing to the deputies. Pike and Harlan gave brief statements. Same story Harlan had told Martha. Ambushed, outnumbered, beaten, chained, bikes stolen. Pruitt asked who did it. Neither of them answered. Then another vehicle came up the road. Not a cruiser, not an ambulance. A black pickup truck, mud-caked tinted windows. It stopped 50 yards from the clearing. 3 men got out. They wore leather vests, different patches, different colors. Garrett saw them. He stood up from the tailgate so fast the truck rocked. His face, already battered and swollen, went completely rigid. He didn't say a word, just stared. The three men by the black truck stared back. One of them pulled out a phone, made a call that lasted maybe 10 seconds. All three got back in the truck and drove away. No words exchanged, no confrontation. They just left. Garrett turned to Pruitt. "I need to use a phone. Who are you calling?" Pruitt asked. "Everyone." Martha sat on a flat rock at the edge of the clearing. A young deputy handed her a bottle of water. She drank it slowly, watching the paramedics finish their work. The woods were quiet again. Birds had come back. A squirrel chattered somewhere above her. Rusty lay at her feet, head on his paws, watching her with those steady brown eyes that always seemed to know when she was about to fall apart. She wasn't falling apart. Not yet. But her hands were still shaking. She'd done it. Found them. Got help. They were free. Roach was alive. It was over. Except it wasn't. She looked at Garrett standing by Dale's truck, talking low and fast into Dale's phone. She looked at the tire tracks where the black truck had been. She looked at the chains still lying in the dirt. Something was starting. Not ending. Dale walked over, sat down on the rock beside her. "You all right?" he asked. "No," Martha said. "Good. Means you're not in shock. Who were those men in the truck?" Dale was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "People you don't want to know about. And the men I just helped." Same answer, different side. Martha looked at him. "How do you know that?" "Because I used to ride, long time ago, before I got old and smart." "You called someone after you called 911. Dale nodded. "Old friend, owes me a favor. I told him what was happening. He'll pass it up the chain." "What chain?" "The kind that doesn't stop until it reaches the top." Martha didn't understand, but she also didn't ask, because part of her didn't want to know. Pruitt walked over. "Mrs. Hayes, I'll need a full statement. Can you come down to the station this afternoon? I can." "Good." "And Mrs. Hayes, yes, you did a brave thing today. Most people would have walked away." Martha looked at him. "Most people aren't combat medics." Pruitt nodded, walked away. Dale drove Martha back to her trailer. Didn't say much. Pulled into her driveway, put the truck in park. "You should call your daughter," he said. "Why?" "Because what happens next is going to be all over the news. And she's going to see it. And she's going to worry." "What happens next?" Dale looked at her, really looked. The way you look at someone when you're about to tell them something they won't want to hear. "You saved 4 members of the Hells Angels. One of them is a chapter president. Another is sergeant at arms, that black truck. Those were Iron Reapers, rival club. This wasn't random, Martha. This was a planned hit on leadership. And now you're part of it, whether you want to be or not." Martha got out of the truck. Rusty jumped down after her. She stood in her driveway looking at her trailer. Small, rusted at the seams, home for 3 years, the place she'd come to disappear. "I just wanted to help," she said. Dale leaned out the window. "I know, but sometimes helping is the most dangerous thing you can do." He drove away. Martha went inside, sat on her couch, Rusty curled up at her feet. She looked at the phone on the kitchen counter, thought about calling Sarah, thought about explaining what happened, thought about hearing her daughter's voice tight with worry, saying the same thing she always said. "Mom, you need to leave that place. Come stay with me in Portland. Please." She didn't call. Instead, she went to the bathroom, washed her hands, looked at herself in the mirror. Same face she saw every morning. 68 years of lines and scars and exhaustion. Gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. Eyes that had seen too much and remembered all of it. Her hands were still shaking. She turned on the faucet, cupped cold water in her palms, splashed it on her face. The cold helped. A little. The phone rang. Martha walked back to the kitchen, picked it up. "Mom." Sarah's voice. Tight, worried, exactly like Martha knew it would be. "I'm fine," Martha said. "I saw the news. 4 men found chained in the woods outside Ridgeline. That was you, wasn't it?" "How did you know?" "Because you're the only person in that entire town who would walk towards something like that instead of away." Martha didn't say anything. "Mom, please, tell me you're okay." "I'm okay. Are you safe?" Martha looked out the window. Saw nothing. Just trees and gravel and the empty road. "I think so," she said. "You think so?" "Mom, That's not good enough. Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you. No, Mom, Sarah, I'm fine. I helped some people. The sheriff has it handled. It's over. It's not over. You don't know these people. And you do. Sarah was quiet. Then she said, I know enough to know you're not safe there anymore. Martha wanted to argue, wanted to tell her daughter she was overreacting, that everything was fine, that she could take care of herself. But she didn't, because deep down she knew Sarah was right. I'll call you tomorrow, Martha said. Mom, I'll call you tomorrow, I promise. She hung up before Sarah could argue. Then she sat down on the couch again, Rusty's head in her lap, and waited for what she didn't know. The first sound came at 3:47 in the afternoon. Engines, distant but unmistakable. Martha stood up, walked to the window. Rusty stood beside her, ears forward. The sound grew louder. Not one engine, many, dozens. She opened the front door, stepped outside, down Meadowbrook Lane past the bend where the gravel road met asphalt. Motorcycles appeared, one after another, a column that stretched so far back she couldn't see the end. 40 bikes, 50, more. They rolled past her trailer in formation, slow and deliberate. The riders didn't look at her, didn't wave, just rode past, engines rumbling like thunder. Dale's truck pulled into her driveway. He got out, stood beside her. It's starting, he said. How many? Martha asked. This is just the first wave. By tonight, there'll be 1,000. By tomorrow, 2,000. Maybe more. Why? Dale looked at her. Because you saved their brothers, and because the Iron Reapers were stupid enough to show up at the scene. That's a declaration, Martha, and declarations get answered. The motorcycles kept coming. Martha counted. Lost track after 80. What do they want, she asked, just as Dale said. Their version of it, and me. You're the reason Roach is alive. That makes you important. That makes you protected. That also makes you a target. Martha felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, something older than fear. The feeling she used to get before a convoy rolled out, before a mission started, before everything went loud and wrong and irreversible. I didn't ask for this, she said. I know, Dale said, but it doesn't matter. You're in it now. The last of the first wave passed. The road went quiet again, but the sound of engines still echoed in the distance. More coming. Always more. Dale looked at Martha. They're going to want to meet you. Probably tonight. The man who runs this region, his name is Stokes. He's not someone you say no to. Then I won't say no. Martha, I'm not running Dale. I'm 68 years old. I've been running from things my whole life. I'm done. Dale studied her face, nodded slowly. All right, but when they come and let me do the talking first. Why? Because I know how this works. And you don't. They came at 7:15 in the evening, not on motorcycles. In a black SUV, windows tinted, no plates. The SUV stopped in front of Martha's trailer. Two men got out of the back. One was tall, lean, silver-haired. His vest was covered in patches, so many they overlapped like scales. His face was weathered lined, the kind of face that had seen everything and been surprised by none of it. The other was Garrett. His face was cleaned up, now stitches over his left eyebrow, bandage on his neck. He moved stiffly, like every step hurt, but he moved. He was alive, functional. Dale met them halfway across the yard, shook hands with the silver-haired man, spoke quietly. Martha couldn't hear what was said. Then Garrett looked at her. Mrs. Hayes, he said, this is Stokes. He'd like to speak with you. Stokes walked toward her, stopped a respectful distance away. Ma'am, he said. His voice was low, calm, the kind of voice that didn't need to be raised to be heard. I understand you're the one who found my men. I am. And you're the one who kept Roach alive until help arrived. I did what I could. Stokes looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, Can we talk inside? Martha hesitated, then nodded. They went into her trailer. It was small, cramped, cluttered with the kind of mess that accumulates when you live alone and stop caring about appearances. Stokes didn't comment on it, just sat down at the small kitchen table. Garrett stood by the door. Dale leaned against the counter. Rusty lay at Martha's feet, watching Stokes with suspicious eyes. Roach is in the hospital, Stokes said. Doctors say if he'd been out there another 2 hours, he wouldn't have made it. Hypothermia would have shut down his organs. You saved his life, Mrs. Hayes. I was a medic, Martha said. It's what I was trained to do. Most people with your training would have walked away. But you didn't. What? Martha didn't answer right away. She looked at Stokes, really looked. Saw the scars on his knuckles, the old knife wound on his forearm, the way he sat perfectly still like a man who'd learned patience through violence. Because 15 years ago, she said I couldn't save someone, and I've been carrying that ever since. Stokes nodded slowly, like he understood, like maybe he carried something similar. The Iron Reapers did this, he said. They ambushed my men, chained them up, planned to come back and finish it. They saw you at the scene today. They know your face, Dale told me. Then you understand you're not safe here. I understand that I'm not leaving. Stokes raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because I'm done running. Stokes studied her. Then he reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a coin. Old bronze worn smooth on one side. On the other, an insignia Martha didn't recognize. This is a marker, Stokes said. It means you're under our protection. Anyone wearing our patch sees this. They know your family. Anywhere, anytime. He placed it on the table in front of her. Martha looked at the coin, didn't pick it up. I don't want to be family, she said. I just want to be left alone. Too late for that, Stokes said. The Reapers saw you. They know you helped us. That makes you a target whether you want to be or not. So you have two choices. Accept our protection or take your chances. Martha felt the weight of those words, the inevitability of them. She picked up the coin. What happens now, she asked. Stokes stood. Now we handle the Reapers. Our way. But I want you to know something, Mrs. Hayes. You did right by my brothers. That means something to us. More than you probably realize. He walked to the door, stopped, looked back. One more thing. I'd like you to meet Roach when he's out of the hospital. I think he'd want to thank you himself. Martha nodded. Stokes left. Garrett followed. The SUV drove away. Dale looked at Martha. You okay? No, Martha said. Good, Dale said. Means you're still thinking straight. He left too. Martha sat alone in her trailer, the coin heavy in her hand. Rusty put his head in her lap. Outside, the sound of engines continued. Wave after wave. The town of Ridgeline filling up with leather and chrome and the kind of justice that didn't come from courtrooms. Martha closed her eyes. Outside, the engines kept coming. The town of Ridgeline had one main street. It ran north to south for exactly 8 blocks, bordered on both sides by buildings that hadn't been updated since the 1970s. A hardware store, a bakery, a diner with a neon sign that only half worked, a general store that sold everything from fishing line to canned beans, a post office, a bar called the Timber Room that opened at noon and closed when the last person left. Population 847. That number hadn't changed in 15 years. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the day Martha found the 4 men, that number had effectively tripled. Motorcycles lined both sides of Main Street, parked in front of every building, every storefront, every available stretch of curb. When the curbs filled up, they parked on the sidewalks. When the sidewalks filled up, they parked in the alleys, in side streets, in empty lots behind the post office. The sound was constant, engines idling, engines revving, engines cutting off, only to be replaced by more engines arriving. By 5 o'clock in the evening, there were over 500 riders in Ridgeline. By 6 o'clock, that number had doubled. Sheriff Bill Pruitt stood on the steps of the municipal building and watched his town transform into something he didn't recognize. He'd called for state police backup 2 hours ago. They were coming, but they weren't here yet. And every 15 minutes, another wave rolled in. 40 bikes, 50, 60. He'd never seen anything like it. Deputy Lewis stood next to him, hand resting on his sidearm, trying to look calm and failing. Sir Lewis said, "What do we do?" "Nothing," Pruitt said. "Nothing. They're not breaking any laws. They're not fighting. They're just here. There's over 1,000 of them. I can count Lewis, and 4 of us." Pruitt looked at him. "You want to try arresting 1,000 bikers, be my guest." Lewis shut up. The businesses on Main Street had started closing early. Doors locked, lights off. The owner of the hardware store, Frank Donnelly, stood behind his front window with a hunting rifle across his arms, watching the riders through the glass. He'd been in Ridgeline his whole life, 63 years. He'd never seen anything like this either. The woman who ran the bakery, Linda Vargas, called her sister in Portland. If you don't hear from me by morning, she said, call the police. Linda, the police are already there. I know, Linda said. That's the problem. Martha sat in her trailer with all the lights off, watching through the window as motorcycles continued to roll past. She'd lost count after 300. Dale had come by an hour ago, told her to stay inside, lock the doors, don't answer for anyone except him. Then he left. Didn't say where he was going. Martha didn't ask. Rusty lay by the door, ears forward, listening to the constant rumble of engines. Martha held the coin Stokes had given her, turned it over in her hands, smooth on one side, rough on the other. She'd looked up the insignia online. Hell's Angels, Oakland chapter, which meant Stokes had been in this life for a long time, long enough to carry a coin like this, long enough to have the kind of authority that could mobilize 1,000 riders with a single phone call. She thought about Roach, wondered if he was awake, wondered if he knew what was happening, wondered if he understood that his life had been saved by a 68-year-old woman who just wanted to be left alone. She thought about Danny Brennan, the way his eyes had gone empty, the way the light had left them all at once like someone flipping a switch. She'd replayed that moment 10,000 times, tried to figure out what she'd done wrong, what she could have done differently, whether those extra 30 seconds of compressions would have made a difference. They wouldn't have. She knew that. The wound was too severe, the blood loss too catastrophic. Danny was dead the moment the shrapnel hit him. She just hadn't accepted it yet. But Roach wasn't Danny. Roach had a chance, and she'd given it to him. That had to count for something. Her phone rang. She picked it up, knew who it was before she answered. Mom, what the hell is going on? Sarah, voice high tight on the edge of panic. I'm fine, Martha said. There are 1,000 motorcycles in your town. It's on the news. They're calling it a gathering. They're saying it's connected to those men you found. Mom, you need to leave. Now, I can't. Why not? Because I'm part of this whether I want to be or not. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have to make sense. It just is. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm coming to get you. No, Mom. Sarah, listen to me. I helped those men because it was the right thing to do. And now there are consequences. But running won't change that. They know who I am. They know where I live. Leaving Ridgeline doesn't make me safer. It just makes me alone. You're already alone. The words hit harder than Sarah probably intended. Martha looked around her trailer. Small, dark, empty, except for her and Rusty and the accumulated debris of a life she'd been trying to forget. I know, Martha said quietly. Then let me help you. You can't. Why not? Because this isn't your fight. You're my mother. That makes it my fight. Martha closed her eyes, felt the weight of every decision she'd made over the past 15 years pressing down on her chest. Leaving the service, leaving Sarah, moving to Ridgeline, cutting herself off from everyone and everything because it was easier than staying connected, easier than feeling. I'll call you in the morning, Martha said. Mom, I promise. She hung up before Sarah could argue. Then she sat in the dark and listened to the engines and wondered if she just made the last promise she'd ever be able to keep. At 8 o'clock in the evening, black SUV pulled up to the diner on Main Street. Stokes got out of the back. 2 other men got out with him. One was Garrett. The other was someone Martha didn't recognize. Older, heavier, scarred face. He moved like a man who'd been in more fights than he could count and won most of them. They went into the diner. Linda Vargas, the woman who owned the place, had stayed open. Not because she wanted to, because 3 bikers had walked in at 7 o'clock, sat down in a booth, ordered coffee, and made it very clear they weren't leaving. Now Stokes sat in that same booth. Garrett and the scarred man sat across from him. Sheriff Pruitt walked in 5 minutes later. He didn't want to be there, but he didn't have a choice. Stokes saw him, gestured to the empty seat next to him. Pruitt sat. Sheriff Stokes said, "We need to talk." "I figured. You know who attacked my men. I have a pretty good idea. Iron Reapers, based out of Creswell. 7 of them planned it. 3 more helped. They've been moving into our territory for 6 months. We've tried to handle it quietly." This was their answer. "So what do you want from me?" "2 things. I want the men who did this, and I want to meet the woman who saved them." Pruitt leaned back. "The woman's name is Martha Hayes. She's 68 years old. She's a civilian, and she's not part of this. She became part of this the moment she walked into those woods. That doesn't mean she wants to be. Stokes looked at him. Doesn't matter what she wants. The Reapers saw her. They know she helped us. That makes her a target. So she's either under our protection or she's on her own. Which do you think is safer? Pruitt didn't answer. As for the Reapers, Stokes continued, I'm giving you first shot. You find them, you arrest them, you charge them, you let the law handle it some. But if you can't do that, or if you won't, then we will. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you how this works. My men were ambushed, beaten, chained to a tree and left to die. That's an act of war. Wars get answered. The only question is whether the answer comes from you or from us. Pruitt felt the weight of that statement, felt the 1,000 riders outside the window, felt the thin line he was standing on between law and chaos. I'll find them, he said. Good, then we won't have to. And Mrs. Hayes, I'll talk to her, respectfully. No one touches her, no one pressures her. She did right by my brothers. That means something. Pruitt stood. I'll arrange a meeting. Tonight, Stokes said, I've got 2,000 riders out there with nothing to do but wait. The longer they wait, the more likely something goes wrong. Pruitt understood. He'd worked crowd control before, knew that idle hands and idle engines made for bad decisions. I'll make the call, he said. Dale drove Martha into town at 9 o'clock in the evening. She didn't want to go, but Dale had made it clear she didn't have a choice. They're not asking, Dale said. They're telling. And when Stokes tells you to do something, you do it. I'm not one of them. Doesn't matter. You saved Roach. That makes you important. That makes you protected. That also makes you someone they need to see, to know, to understand. Martha looked out the window as they drove through Ridgeline, motorcycles everywhere. Riders standing in groups, smoking, talking in low voices. Some of them looked at Dale's truck as it passed. Most didn't. What do they want from me, Martha asked. To say thank you, Dale said, and to make sure you understand what that means. What does it mean? It means you're under their protection now, whether you want to be or not. They pulled up in front of the diner. Dale parked, didn't get out right away. Martha, he said, these aren't bad people, but they're not good people either. They live by a code you don't understand, and part of that code is loyalty. You showed loyalty to their brothers. They'll show loyalty to you, but it comes with expectations. What expectations? That you accept their protection, that you don't refuse it, that you understand what it means to be family in their world. Martha looked at the diner, saw Stokes through the window sitting in a booth drinking coffee like he had all the time in the world. I don't want to be family, she said. Too late, Dale said. You already are. They went inside. Stokes stood when Martha walked in. Garrett stood too. The scarred man just watched. Mrs. Hayes, Stokes said, thank you for coming. Martha didn't say anything, just sat down across from him. Stokes gestured to the waitress. Coffee. No, thank you. Mind if I finish mine? Go ahead. Stokes took a sip, set the cup down, looked at her with those calm, steady eyes that had probably seen more violence than Martha could imagine. Roach is awake, he said. Doctors say he's stable. They're keeping him another few days for observation, but he's going to be fine. Because of you. I did what anyone should do, but most people wouldn't. Why did you? Martha hesitated, looked at Garrett, at the scarred man, at Dale standing by the door, then back at Stokes. Because 15 years ago, she said I couldn't save someone who looked just like him. And I've been trying to make up for it ever since. Stokes nodded slowly. Who was he? Corporal Danny Brennan, 22 years old, killed by an IED outside Kandahar. I was his medic. I couldn't stop the bleeding. How long did he last? 4 minutes. You stayed with him until he stopped breathing. Stokes was quiet for a moment. Then he said, then you know what it's like to watch someone die, and you know what it's like to carry that. I do. So do I. So does everyone wearing this patch. We've all lost brothers. We've all carried them. And when someone saves one of ours, we don't forget. He reached into his vest and pulled out the coin again, the same one he'd given her earlier. Set it on the table between them. I gave this to you once. I'm giving it to you again. Not because I think you'll use it, because I want you to understand what it means. You're under our protection, Mrs. Hayes. Anyone wearing our patch sees this coin, they know your family, anywhere. Anytime. No questions asked. Martha looked at the coin, didn't pick it up. What if I don't want protection? Then you're a fool, Stokes said. The Iron Reapers saw you. They know you helped us. They know your face, your address, everything. You think they're going to let that slide, then arrest them. We will. But there's always more. Always someone willing to step up. Always someone willing to make a point. Protection isn't optional, Mrs. Hayes. It's survival. Martha felt the truth of that settle in her chest. Heavy, inescapable. She picked up the coin. What happens now? She asked. Now we wait for the sheriff to do his job. If he can't, we do it for him. But either way, the Reapers answer for what they did. And me. You go home. You live your life, and if anyone ever threatens you, you show them that coin, and they'll know what it means. Stokes stood. Garrett and the scarred man stood with him. One more thing, Stokes said. When Roach gets out, I want you to meet him. Face to face, I think it would mean something to him. And maybe to you too, Martha nodded. They left. Dale drove her home. She sat in her trailer with the coin in her hand and tried not to think about what came next. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Martha's phone rang. She was already awake, hadn't slept, couldn't. She picked up. Mrs. Hayes, a voice she didn't recognize. Male, young, nervous. Who is this? My name is Marcus Webb. I'm calling because I need to tell you something. How did you get this number? Doesn't matter. Just listen. There's a plan to burn your trailer. Tonight. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know exactly when. But it's happening. Martha's hand tightened on the phone. Who's planning it? Iron Reapers. The ones who didn't get caught. They want to send a message. They want to show the angels they're not afraid. And you're the easiest target. Why are you telling me this? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because I'm done. I'm done with this life. I'm done with the violence. My brother died from an overdose last year. Pills we sold. And I've been carrying that ever since. Just like you've been carrying whatever you're carrying. I hear it in your voice. Martha didn't say anything. I'm giving you a warning, Marcus said. And I'm giving the angels everything I know. Names, dresses, plans, all of it. Because maybe if I do this, I can sleep at night again. Thank you, Martha said. Don't thank me, Marcus said. Just stay alive. He hung up. Martha sat in the dark phone still in her hand, heart pounding. Then she called Dale. They're coming, she said. Within 30 minutes, 6 bikers were stationed around Martha's trailer. 2 in front, 2 in back, 2 on the sides. They didn't knock, didn't ask permission, just positioned themselves and waited. Martha watched from the window, saw them standing in the shadows, silent, still, like sentries guarding something valuable. She should have felt safer. She didn't. She felt trapped. At 3 o'clock in the morning, headlights appeared at the end of Meadowbrook Lane. 3 vehicles, trucks, moving slow. The bikers saw them, didn't move, just watched. The truck stopped 50 yards from the trailer. Doors opened. Men got out, 12 of them, carrying bats, chains. Something else Martha couldn't make out in the dark. One of the bikers stepped forward, held up a hand. Far enough, he said. The men stopped. We're not here for you, one of them said. We're here for the old city. Then you're here for us. We outnumber you. You think that matters. The man with the bat stepped closer. She helped your guys. We're going to make her regret it. The biker didn't move, just said you take one more step and this ends bad for all of you. You going to shoot us? Don't have to. Got 2,000 brothers in town right now. You make a move, they'll hear about it. And they'll come. All of them. You ready for that? The men hesitated. Then one of them pulled something from his jacket, a bottle, cloth stuffed in the top. Molotov cocktail. He lit it. Everything happened fast. The biker in front pulled a gun, fired once, not at the men, into the air, a warning shot. The sound cracked through the night like thunder. The man with the Molotov threw it anyway. It arced through the air flames trailing behind. It headed straight for Martha's trailer. One of the bikers in back tackled Martha through the door, knocking her to the ground just as the bottle smashed against the front wall. Glass shattered. Flames spread. Gunfire erupted. Not from the bikers, from Dale's trailer next door. Dale had grabbed his shotgun and stepped onto his porch, firing into the air, into the ground, anywhere that would make the attackers scatter. They scattered. Trucks peeled out. Men ran. Within 30 seconds, they were gone. The bikers moved fast. One grabbed a fire extinguisher from his bike. Another kicked dirt at the base of the flames. A third grabbed a hose from Dale's yard and turned it on. Within 2 minutes, the fire was out. Martha stood in her doorway, shaking. Rusty pressed against her leg, growling low. Dale walked over, shotgun still in hand. "You all right?" Martha nodded, couldn't speak. One of the bikers approached. Tall, lean, tattoos running up both arms. He looked at Martha. "Ma'am, we need to get you out of here. This place isn't safe anymore." "I'm not leaving." "Mrs. Hayes, I'm not leaving." The biker looked at Dale. Dale shrugged. "She's stubborn." "Then we stay," the biker said. "All of us. Until this is over." By dawn, there were 20 bikers around Martha's trailer. Stokes arrived at 6 o'clock in the morning. He walked through the charred section of Martha's front wall, looked at the damage, looked at her. "You hurt?" "No." "Good. Pack a bag. You're coming with me." "I'm not." "This isn't a request, Mrs. Hayes. They came for you once. They'll come again. Next time we might not be here in time." Martha looked at the burned wall, at the broken glass, at Rusty sitting in the corner, ears flat, still on edge. She nodded. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," Stokes said. "Somewhere they won't find you." "And then what?" "Then we finish this." The safe house was a cabin 40 miles outside Ridgeline, tucked into the hills where the roads turned to dirt, and the trees grew so thick you couldn't see sky. Martha sat on the porch with Rusty at her feet and watched the sun rise through the pines. She'd been here 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of waiting for something to happen. Sarah had come on the second day, drove straight from Portland the moment Martha called. She'd walked into the cabin, saw her mother sitting at the small kitchen table and didn't say a word, just sat down across from her. They'd sat like that for 10 minutes, silent. Then Sarah said, "You look tired." "I am." "When was the last time you slept?" "I don't remember." Sarah reached across the table, took her mother's hand. Martha almost pulled away, stopped herself. "Mom," Sarah said quietly, "talk to me." "About what?" "About why you've been running for 15 years. Martha looked at her daughter, really looked. Sarah was 42 now, grown, independent, a teacher in Portland with her own life, her own family, 2 kids Martha barely knew, because she'd kept them at arm's length the same way she'd kept everyone at arm's length. "I wasn't running," Martha said. "Yes, you were. From me, from your grandkids, from anyone who tried to get close. I was protecting you." "From what?" Martha pulled her hand back, looked out the window, saw nothing, just trees and shadows and the weight of 15 years pressing down. "From me," she said finally. Sarah waited. "After Danny died," Martha continued, "I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't be the person who saves people. Couldn't be the medic, the soldier, the one who's supposed to have answers. I failed him, and if I could fail him, I could fail anyone. So you left." "So I left and came here. I came to Ridgeline because it was small, quiet, because no one knew me, because I could disappear. And then you found those men in the woods." Martha nodded, "And everything I'd been running from found me." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You didn't fail Danny, Mom. You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It never is. That's the point. You can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean you stop trying." Martha looked at her daughter, saw the certainty in her eyes, the strength, the same strength Martha used to have before she lost it. "When did you get so smart?" Martha asked. "I had a good teacher," Sarah said, "even if she's been hiding for 15 years. On the 4th day, Stokes came to the cabin. He brought news. "They found them," he said. Martha and Sarah sat at the table. Stokes stood by the door, hands in his pockets, looking older than he had a week ago. "All of them?" Martha asked. 7. The ones who planned it, the ones who carried it out. Sheriff Pruitt coordinated with state police, picked them up in 3 different counties. No shots fired. Clean arrests. "What about the ones who attacked my trailer?" 9 of them in custody, 3 still at large. But we know where they are. It's just a matter of time. Martha felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief, just a small reduction in pressure. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now they stand trial. Kidnapping, aggravated assault, arson, attempted murder. They're looking at serious time, all of them. And me. You go home. or you don't. That's up to you. Martha looked out the window, thought about her trailer, the burned wall, the broken glass, the place she'd called home for 3 years. I don't know if I can go back, she said. Stokes nodded. I understand. If you want to leave, no one will stop you. But if you stay, you're protected. That doesn't change. Why, Martha asked. Why does it matter so much to you? Stokes was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because you gave Roach a second chance. And second chances are rare in our world. We don't forget them. He pulled out his phone, showed Martha a photo, a man in a hospital bed, awake, smiling, thin, pale, but alive. Roach. He wants to meet you, Stokes said, when you're ready. Martha looked at the photo, saw Danny's face, saw Roach's face, saw the line between them blur and then separate. I'll meet him, she said. They arranged the meeting for a week later. Neutral ground, a park in Eugene halfway between Ridgeline and Portland. Public, safe. Martha drove herself. Sarah wanted to come. Martha said no. This was something she needed to do alone. She arrived early, sat on a bench near the playground, watched kids running, climbing, screaming with the kind of joy that only children have. Rusty lay at her feet watching the kids with mild interest. Then she saw him. Roach walked across the grass, moving slowly, carefully like someone still recovering from serious injury. He was thinner than she remembered, gaunt, but his eyes were clear, focused. He sat down on the bench beside her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Roach said, I don't remember much from that day, just pieces. The cold, the chains, the way my chest wouldn't fill all the way when I tried to breathe. He paused, looked at her. But I remember your voice, telling me to stay with you, to keep breathing. And I remember thinking, if I can just do that, if I can just keep breathing, maybe I'll be okay. Martha didn't say anything, just listened. The doctors told me I was maybe 2 hours from dying. Roach continued, hypothermia. My core temp had dropped too far. Another hour and my organs would have started shutting down. They said if someone hadn't found me when they did, I wouldn't have made it. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photo, handed it to Martha. A little girl, maybe 2 years old, dark hair, big eyes, smiling at the camera. Her name is June Roach said, after my mother. I've been sober 6 months. Got custody back, got a job, got a life. He looked at the photo in Martha's hands. Every morning I wake up and see her face, I think of you, because none of this exists if you hadn't walked into those woods. If you hadn't stayed, if you hadn't done what you did. Martha felt something crack inside her chest, something she'd been holding on to for 15 years. The weight of Danny's death, the guilt, the failure. I couldn't save him, she said quietly. The soldier I told you about. Danny, I couldn't save him. But you saved me, Roach said, and that counts for something. It has to. Martha looked at the photo, at June's smile, at the life that existed because she'd made a choice in the woods. It does, she said, and for the first time in 15 years she believed it. Martha returned to Ridgeline 2 weeks later. Her trailer had been repaired, the burn damage patched, new siding, new windows. The work had been done by volunteers from town. Frank Donnelly donated materials from the hardware store. Linda Vargas organized a fundraiser. Even people who'd locked their doors and turned off their lights when the bikers came had contributed. The town had changed, not in big ways, but in small ones. People nodded at her on the street, asked how she was doing, stopped to talk instead of walking past. Dale told her what happened while she was gone. The bikers didn't leave all at once, he said. They stayed for 3 days after you went to the safe house, helped clean up, fixed things that were broken, spent money at the businesses. And then Stokes stood on the steps of the municipal building and told everyone that Ridgeline was under protection, that anyone who came here looking for trouble would answer to them. What did people say, Martha asked. Nothing, because they were too scared to say anything. But after the bikers left, after things went back to normal, people started talking. And what they said was that you did a brave thing, that you helped people who needed help, and that the bikers weren't the monsters everyone thought they were. They're not monsters, Martha said. They're just people, living by their own rules. People are starting to see that, Dale said. The trial took 4 months, Martha testified. So did Garrett Pike and Harlan. So did Dale. So did the paramedics who treated Roach. All 7 Iron Reapers who'd planned and carried out the attack were convicted. Kidnapping, aggravated assault, theft. Vincent Kane, the enforcer who'd led the attack on Martha's trailer, received the longest sentence, 45 years. The judge called it an act of domestic terrorism. The Iron Reapers disbanded. The members who hadn't been arrested either left the state or joined other clubs. Their chapter house in Cresswell was sold. The money went to victims' funds. It was over. Ridgeline went back to being Ridgeline. Population 847. One main street, 8 blocks. Nothing changed and everything changed. 1 year after the attack on the last Saturday in October 27, motorcycles rolled into Ridgeline. They parked on Main Street. The riders got out, went into the bakery, the hardware store, the general store, bought things, left large tips, nodded at people they recognized. Then they rode past Martha's trailer. Slow, respectful, didn't stop, didn't wave, just acknowledged. Martha stood on her porch and watched them pass. Every year after that, the same thing happened. Different riders sometimes, but always on the last Saturday in October. Always respectful, always quiet. A ritual, an acknowledgement, a debt honored. 4 years after the attack, Martha got a call. Unknown number, she almost didn't answer. Mrs. Hayes, a voice she didn't recognize. Male, young. Who is this? My name is Tommy Ford. People call me Wrench. I was one of the guys stationed outside your trailer the night they attacked. Martha remembered. 6 bikers, standing guard, silent, still. I remember, she said. I wanted to let you know I'm getting married next month, and I wanted to invite you, if you're willing to come. Why? Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because you're the reason I'm alive. When those guys came at us with guns and Molotovs, I stepped in front of your door, took a bullet in the shoulder. Would have taken more if my brothers hadn't pulled me back. And when I was in the hospital bleeding out, you came. You donated blood, same type as mine. O negative, rare. Martha had forgotten about that. Or tried to. The doctor said I wouldn't have made it without that transfusion. Tommy continued. So you saved me twice. Once by saving Roach, once by saving me. And I wanted you to know that I'm getting married because of you, having a life because of you. And I'd be honored if you'd come. Martha felt tears in her eyes, didn't try to stop them. I'll be there, she said. The wedding was small, 50 people, held in a field outside Eugene. String lights hung from trees. A band played. People danced. Martha sat at a table with Sarah and her 2 grandkids, 9 and 6 now, old enough to ask questions. Grandma, why is everyone so nice to you? The 9-year-old asked. Martha looked around, at the riders and their families, at Stokes standing by the bar raising a glass in her direction, at Roach dancing with his daughter June, now 6 years old, at Tommy and his new wife smiling like the world was theirs. Because I helped some people, once Martha said, and they didn't forget. That's cool, the 6-year-old said. Sarah leaned over. It's more than cool. It's everything. 8 years after the attack, Martha turned 76. She still lived in her trailer, still walked the woods with Rusty, except now Rusty was a different dog. The first Rusty had passed 3 years ago. The new one was younger, stronger. She'd named him Danny. Sarah visited every month, brought the kids, stayed for weekends. They'd rebuilt their relationship slowly, carefully, like 2 people learning to trust each other again. Martha still carried the coin, still kept it in her pocket, never used it. But knowing it was there mattered. She didn't have nightmares anymore, didn't wake up gasping, seeing Danny's face, feeling his blood on her hands. That weight had lifted, not all at once, slowly, over years, through small acts of living, through choosing to stay instead of run. On the last Saturday in October 23, motorcycles rolled into Ridgeline. Martha stood on her porch, watched them pass, raised her hand in a small wave. One of the riders waved back. The others just nodded, and then they were gone. Martha sat down in the chair Dale had built for her. Danny lay at her feet. Sarah and the kids were inside making dinner. The smell of roasting chicken drifted through the open door. She pulled the coin from her pocket, turned it over in her hands, smooth on one side, rough on the other. She thought about the chain around the tree, the blood on Roach's face, the way his chest had stuttered when he tried to breathe. She thought about Danny Brennan, 22 years old, dead in her arms. She thought about Tommy Ford, married now, father of two, alive. She thought about Roach's daughter June, 8 years old now, growing up with a father who'd been given a second chance. She thought about all the lives that existed because she'd made a choice in the woods, because she'd decided not to run. Some debts can never be repaid. Some can only be honored, year after year, mile after mile, until the engines stop running. Martha put the coin back in her pocket, stood up, went inside to have dinner with her family, and for the first time in 15 years, she felt like she was home.